Well, I started playing jazz when I was in about 11th grade, but I had listened to jazz my whole life. My father was a jazz enthusiast, so the reason I started playing jazz was because of Grover Washington. He had a big hit called Mr. Magic, and I learned the solo. And then I started playing modern jazz because my father said, well, that's nice that you learned Grover Washington, but can you learn this Charlie Parker record? And when he put that on, that was the thing. When I started trying to learn that, that was the thing that made me be committed to learning jazz more than anything, because I realized how great he was. And at that time, I made a plan in my head to try to play with some of the people that Charlie Parker played with. And I became a person who was, I guess, a Charlie Parker enthusiast. And I am still the same to this day. But I played with a lot of people in New Orleans who were mentors when I was young. And then I went to Boston and studied at Berklee College of Music. And then Roy Haynes, who was Charlie Parker's drummer, gave me my first gig in New York when I was 19. So I would say those guys like him and Art Blakey and just about almost every other jazz musician of note who was alive at that time have been teachers as far as bebop and higher forms of jazz to me.
You started at 19 at that.
Well, because I was nurtured when I was young, I realized that it's important to give back to the younger people so that this music can stay alive. And I feel it's a necessary music for humanity because of the ideal of the music, which is to be the best that you can be within a group setting and still be a human being. So I think that that ideal is necessary in the musical sense and in the sense of the world. So for that to continue, people who want to learn this music, young people who are committed, need people like myself to give them a chance to play. Because there's no record companies at this point. There were a few record companies that were signing people, and there's diminishing radio stations and hardly any mainstream press. So if we don't pick up the mantle and do what's necessary to ensure its health and that we have further generations, then we know that we won't have it anymore. So that's what I've been doing. And it's also fun to learn their perspective and share what I learned from the masters that I was around. Well, it's just everything is the amount of work that you put in will reap the benefits at the end. So if they work hard and they're committed and they do everything in their power to learn the music and make the choices to be a better musician and a better person, then you will see the fruits of their labor. Michael Jordan, who's one of the greatest basketball players ever, they asked him who was going to be great as him, and he said the person that doesn't take any shortcuts. That was his answer. So I would say that is my answer too. The people that will keep this music moving forward are the young musicians who don't take any shortcuts. So you just have to work hard. Yeah, I have a lot of different levels of thinking in terms of playing music. So I think understanding the world you live in and what is natural to you is a key component to playing the music that you should be playing. So I love dance clubs, and I grew up dancing to traditional jazz in New Orleans and being part of the culture. So I just continued to do the things that I grew up doing. And then they started finding themselves into the jazz that I was playing. But I think the thing that may be unique about me is that the stuff I put in jazz is experience-based. So leading a smooth jazz band, actually knowing what it takes to go out on the road with that, and then putting that experience into straight ahead music is different than just listening to it. Of putting something that comes directly from your heart. I remember I was in Harlem one time, and I was playing at Grant's Tomb, which is a big concert in the summertime, and there was some older ladies, and they put me on the side, and they said, you know, a lot of young people don't realize that jazz is dance music. Well, I thought of traditional jazz, the older jazz, as dance music, but I wasn't really thinking of bebop as dance music. So they said, we're going to teach you how to do the Lindy Hop. And they proceeded to show me how to Lindy Hop. And from that moment on, my ideas about modern jazz changed, because now I had this perspective of this is dance music, and you can dance to Charlie Parker. So I started playing from what I call a dancer's perspective. And I played with Eddie Palmieri, and he always talked about the dance aesthetic. So different things come into what you do, and it felt natural to me, you know, to think like that because of coming from New Orleans. So I just added it into what I was doing. I mean, we just have to do, I think Charlie Parker's music could be popular, or whatever, you know. A lot of different types of music could be popular. We just have to get it to the people, you know. Even if it sounds like computers, I'm quite sure there's someone somewhere who wants to hear music that sounds like computers. It's just finding the people that want to hear it. It's hard for someone in high school today to hear John Coltrane or myself, because their radio stations are not going to play it. It's not there in school, so it's hard for them to even get the first initial chance to hear it, and that's what we're trying to do, make sure that it's there for them to hear, so they can make up their own mind. Well, actually, my nephew who plays trumpet is Christian Scott. He was playing with me, and so I was looking for a bassist, so he recommended Esperanza. So she came and sat in, and she was an enormous talent, as the world knows now. So it was easy for me to say, yeah, I'd love for her to play with me. So then she started playing with me, and I found out that Esperanza was a great singer, and she went on to start her own band, and the rest is history. You know, it's great to see the young people who've come through your band, so many of them actually through my group, go on and become leaders in jazz music, which is what my plan was. Esperanza is finding her way, and all the other musicians are finding their way. I can just hope the best for them and tell people that they exist. I don't know how much I need to tell Esperanza, tell people that Esperanza exists, you know, but I'm doing stuff in terms of what I'm doing with music. That's the only thing I can do, and helping young people. If you go back and look at the long list of young people who've come through who have their band, you know that I had to have had a plan to help them, because Christian McBride, Mark Whitfield, Christian Scott, Esperanza Spalding, Dwayne Burnell, Cyrus Chestnut, Carl Allen. I mean, even on the rap side, Notorious B.I.G., I mentored him. And guys who are million-selling producers came through what I'm doing. And so it was a plan. And I'm not really I don't make a lot of noise, but if you look behind the scenes, when you talk about the second line in modern jazz, I wrote a song, and to me, everybody who's playing anything New Orleans in a modern context, that was the first song that put that context together. They're playing the same beat that I made up. You look at bringing the music of Congo Square into the modern jazz format. You'll see that I was the one who initiated that. If you look into playing the tensions on chords, you look back, you see that I was the one. You look on a record called New York's Second Line, and you see that I was one of the first young guys to say I'm using the whole history of jazz. I'm trying to put from Louis Armstrong and Sidney Bechet to John Coltrane, Duke Ellington, and Albert Ayler, all of it into a style. And now you see many people, that has become a normal thing for musicians to think like that. So I quietly just did what I was doing. I was one of the first ones rhyming on the jazz record, doing hip hop on the jazz record, adding dance club elements like hip hop, R&B, and soul. You know, I always take whatever comes to my mind, I start doing it. But when first guy is not usually the guy that people pay attention to. But I just know that I paid the dues to do it first, no matter what happened, and brought it forth. And then I look around and I see all these other people doing it. But if you look at, I always say, check the date on the label, you will know for sure that I was the guy who came up with the idea. And to me, the hardest thing is to come up with the idea. Once an idea is presented, then you can do something with it. But to come up with the initial thought, oh, this is interesting, in your head, you know, just from living your life in a natural way. That's the hardest thing. That's what Charlie Parker did. That's why I wanted to be like him. He came up with the initial thought for bebop. And Thelonious Monk, what he did, he came up with the initial thought. So these were originals. So that's why I love them so much. And I was fortunate in high school to say, I'm going to follow these ideals of these guys. Well, it was, to me, I've always said that Bird was like the Bach of jazz. When Bach came up with the well-tempered clavier, he put it into a system. He took all the stuff that came before and put it into a system that you could understand and see. This is the way we approach a diminished chord. You could actually see all the notes, and you could see the whole tone scales and all the different elements of music and rhythm and harmony. He put it into a system that freed it up. But first he made a system that you could see, a concrete system. Well, he took all the disparate ideas that were out there and formulated them into a style and a system that we could see, that you can branch off from. For fun, I love to go fishing. I love museums. I love walking around, visiting cities, and I love architecture. I'm just studying and enjoying the world. I mean, I'm very open-minded. The only thing I won't do too much, which maybe I'm starting to do now, is daredevil stuff. But I've done a few things like that. But if it seems fun and someone suggests it, I probably will do it, man. I love cooking, and I love
Louisiana style cooking.
Well, you know, I go to the places in the neighborhood where real soulful home style cooking, but I do go to the higher end restaurants. But my favorite place is a guy on Claiborne and I think Iberville Row. If you go in there, you probably wouldn't want to eat, but I love the food there. And you know, you can get a little plate for $4 and so much food. So I love I guess because I'm getting older, I'm reverting back to my days of eating soul food as a youth. So.
Why is looking for us coming and texting me in the restaurant.
But I must say the praline connection is quite good also.
I agree with that. You know, Snug Harbor. I enjoy being over at Snug Harbor. My background is culinary, so
Okay.
I worked at Cape Paul's.
Okay, well, yeah, he was innovative. Cape Paul was very. I remember when he came through, and he put all these different spices together, and the black and red fish, which almost killed all of the red fish, and his intense use of butter. He puts butter in a lot of his dishes, but it's good for the palate. The butter, the flavors stick to the butter. So I like Cape Paul's cooking, but you just have to.
Well, he's from Appaloosa, so from being from Appaloosa, they cook totally different than they do from Baton Rouge.
Right, he's from the heart of Cajun country,
yeah,
so
exactly.
Yeah, his use of spices is highly advanced.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, I thought he was better than Emerald, but they both work together at Commander's Palace.
Yeah, I mean,
Commander. And then the Brennans are really taking over.
Yeah.
How did Katrina change your life, and has it affected the way that you look at things differently, the way that you play your music? If your music is taken from your experiences, how did that affect you, Katrina? And where were you during Katrina?
Well, during Katrina, I was actually in New Orleans, trying to help families to get out. And the reason a lot of people stayed in.
Sorry about that.
Is it okay with you?
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the reasons a lot of people stayed in New Orleans is because we hadn't had a hurricane since 1965 that really did any damage. And so we were leaving the city every time someone said a hurricane was coming. And many people just said, you know, after 65, 75, 85, 95, after 40 years, man, we're good, the hurricane won't hit us. So they played chicken for a time that proved to be not the right time. And I was trying to help some family members who thought they could ride another storm out, just like they had for 40 years. And then we got stuck there and ultimately wound up in a hotel. And it's another kind of feeling where you actually feel like if you make the wrong move here, you might not be making any more moves. And then you realize you lose everything, which I sort of wasn't as upset as most people thought I should have been. The part that upset me was the amount of people who came and took advantage of us, like the contractors and just everybody who just, you know, took our money and left us high and dry. So that was the part that really, when I started feeling down and out, that I was trying and working so hard, and then someone could just come and take everything, and you know, even from some older people. But I decided that you can't sit around and wallow in sorrow. You have to get up and keep moving. And I realized also from Katrina the relevance of New Orleans culture, and that it needed to be kept alive, just as jazz needed to be kept alive. Being a big chief in the culture of New Orleans, I was firmly committed to keeping what I deem the roots of a lot of American music alive. New Orleans is special because it's the only place in America where Africans were allowed to continue the culture that they had in Africa. You know, if you were from Nigeria, you can continue the culture you had in Nigeria right in America, in New Orleans. So, and a lot of those elements are still alive and still present in the music that we have in New Orleans, which is in rock and roll, R&B, funk, jazz, and almost every type of music that you can imagine that comes from America, you can hear some of those strains in that music. So I know it's important to keep that alive for further generations also. So I'm committed to that aspect also right now.
Right.